This is Damon Fordham, adjunct professor of history at the Citadel, and was an author and historian. And a subject that I've heard a lot about lately is the subject of lost generations. And it just so happened while I was on this mine, I was reading the Book of Enoch, which was written around 200 BC or so. And in the 107th chapter and the first verse of this Book of Enoch, it says, "And I saw written on them that generation upon generation shall transgress until a generation of righteousness arises." Well, what does that mean and what does that have to do with now? I want you to think about a couple things, ladies and gentlemen. You see, oftentimes people say that this current generation is a lost one and that there's little to no hope for it. They're going to hell in a handbasket, etc., and so forth. And while many people have said that since the beginning of time, we see that communities and homes and families and all that are fractured in our land as never before. And the Akan people of Ghana, West Africa, have often said that the destruction of a nation begins in the homes of its people. So what are we to do about this? Well, here's something to think about. I know a lot of young men whose fathers abandoned them in their youth. And a lot of them were angry and bitter. But guess what a lot of those same young men did? Because their fathers didn't do the right thing by them, a lot of them grew up swearing that they would do the right thing by their children. There are a lot of young people who grew up in the homes of parents or other adults who were alcoholics. And guess what a lot of those young people did? They swore that when they grew up, they would either drink in moderation or not at all. You have young people whose parents were involved with violent behavior and in and out of jail. And guess what? Many of those same young people grew up and said, "I'm not going to do that when I get older," and lived righteous lives. And so I say all this to say that it's entirely possible that when you have a generation that has dealt with unrighteous behavior and things that are just ruinous to society and themselves, the young children look at them and some of them will say, "You know what? I'm not going to do that when I get older." And they grow up to be righteous human beings and do the right thing by their children, their neighborhoods, their communities, their countries, and also themselves. So when you think that a generation is going downhill or anything like that, remember, some of those young people are learning from the mistakes they saw in front of them and will grow up to correct them. So that's how a righteous generation can come after generations of transgressions. This is Damon Fordham.